Well, let's talk a little bit about the importance of theological research. In this brief video, we want to just introduce you to what theological research is and talk specifically about the importance of this in the evangelical community. J.P. Moreland, in a foreword to a book on Introduction to Theological Research, the evangelical community finds itself in an odd position today. On one hand, our numbers are strong if measured by the overall population. Churches continue to be planted, evangelical publishing, radio, and so forth show no sign of weakening. On the other hand, our impact is quite small in comparison to our numbers. The public discourse of our culture continues to grow more and more secular and post-Christian. The makeup of man is more important than the speech writer in our political processes, and evangelical Christianity is mired in marginalization at the edges of cultural influence. So what's going on here? Well, Moreland says, in his view, evangelicals are simply not producing intelligent, articulate, winsome leaders who have the spiritual power and intellectual training to outlive and to outthink those outside the church. We live in what is most likely the most anti-intellectual period in the history of the church. There is growing pressure on seminary students, ministers, and church teachers generally to adopt a shallow, popularistic approach to teaching and preaching and ministry. But we Christians must resist this trend and refuse to give in to slogans instead of answers, soundbite messages instead of well-reasoned expressions of our views, simplistic books and articles instead of meaty food for God's people. We must equip God's people to think and study for themselves instead of becoming inordinately dependent upon teachers that tell them what to believe. So this is why theological research is so important. This class hopes to equip you to be better information literate, which will allow you to be more efficient as you continue in your theological research. Well, let me give you a definition of what theological research is. So just as the field of any other discipline academically oriented implies, the idea of searching and searching again for answers is something one does not know. Theological research is simply research undertaken within the disciplinary context of the theological endeavor. Yet, however dogmatic the shape of fully researched theological argument may ultimately take, the discipline of theology as we know it today began with questions and not with answers. Some of the questions have erred on the side of the arcane or speculative, such as, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Yet even this question engaged medieval theologians who first posed it, and has inspired contemporary poets to ask further questions. What medieval, modern, and postmodern theologians have in common is that they do theological research to uncover resources that will help them reflect on the theological task, to trace its historical development, and to construct theologies that respond adequately to the questions posed in their own situations.